the Supreme Court has woken up and done some nice things. They said to a grand jury in New York City, sure, you want to see Trump's taxes? No problem. This goes back to October of last year when Trump took this to the Supreme Court. He's been fighting this now for years. And then the Republicans wanted the Supreme Court to look at their claims of so-called voter fraud in Wisconsin. And the Supreme Court said, nah, there's nothing to see here. Forget that. And they wanted the Supreme Court to take up their so-called voter fraud case in Pennsylvania. And the Supreme Court said, Republicans, take a walk, take a hike. Ain't going to happen. So what's going on now? Well, Donald Trump has apparently laid out a ruthless plan to stomp out democracy in 2024. That was my headline on Saturday over at Medium.com. Trump's ruthless plan to stop out democracy. And what it is, I was predicting, now this was the day before yesterday, I was predicting that Donald Trump at the CPAC conference, which is either at the end of this week or early next week, or this coming next weekend. I think it's this coming next weekend. It's interesting. I always used to go to CPAC for probably 10 years, maybe longer. Every single year I went to CPAC, and I would be the one progressive and all these conservative talk show hosts, because of course that's America's radio landscape. And it was always interesting, but the last couple of years haven't made it. It's turned into crazy town. It's just like, but maybe once CPAC is going on, we can get some of these folks back on and see what they're up to. But anyhow, I was predicting on Saturday that Donald Trump would use CPAC to declare his candidacy for president in 2024. And I pointed out that there's a whole bunch of upsides to Trump for this. The first, if they go after him the way they put Al Capone in prison. Al Capone was responsible for all kinds of crimes, bootlegging, murder, conspiracy to murder, theft, robbery, beating people, extortion, blackmail, you name it. Al Capone did it. But all they could ultimately nail him on was tax evasion, income tax evasion. And that's what he went to prison for. Well, Cyrus Vance in New York City is going after Donald Trump for the same thing. So if he's running for president, when Vance, who is a Democrat, comes after him, or Letitia James, the Attorney General for the state of New York, comes after him, or, pretty much anybody else who isn't a Republican comes at, well, even if they're a Republican comes after him, he will be able to say, he'll be yelling and squealing that, it's just partisan. They're just coming after me because they don't want me to be president. They're coming after me because they're Democrats, or they're coming after me because they're Republicans who want to be president or want their favorite person. They want Lindsey Graham to be president. They want Ted Cruz to be president. They don't want me to be president, and that's why they're coming after me. So, number one, he gets an excuse, which, Trump's entire life, he's never taken responsibility for anything. He always blames other things on other people. So, number one. Number two, if he declares that he's running for president, or even strongly implies it, he'll be able to begin raising money again in a big way. Now, I checked out DonaldJTrump.com over the weekend, and sure enough, he's still raising money. His website is still up, and it's still asking for donations. But it hasn't been kicked into high gear in a way, basically since January 6th. He hasn't been sending out these daily 4 and 5 and 6 emails from him and his son Eric and his daughter Ivanka and others. But he can crank that back up. And keep in mind, in the 8-10 weeks or so after he lost the election, he raised something on the order of $400 to $600 million, telling his breathless donors that he was going to use this money to fight election fraud and fight and stop the steal, right? That was his big thing. Well, it turns out there was some election fraud. There were 4 people in Pennsylvania, and the state attorney general or the state secretary of state nailed them. 4 people in Pennsylvania who registered dead relatives, 3 of them a dead parent, 1 of them a dead spouse, 4 people who registered dead relatives to vote and then voted absentee ballots in their names. 4 people out of millions. And 3 out of the 4 voted for Trump. But, you know, did it change the election? Is it worth bringing down your electoral system? No. So anyhow, that's the big second benefit for Donald Trump, is that, you know, he gets to raise money like there's no tomorrow. The third is he gets to satisfy his ego. He gets to go back on his roadshow. He loves nothing more than standing in front of 1,000 people and having them scream, "I love you," at him. This is what he lives for. And so he's going to get that back. And it's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out with the GOP. I mean, his approval rating among Republicans is now back above 50%. And Fareed Zakaria pointed out on Sunday, I don't know if you caught it, on CNN, on his program, this report, I think he said it was from the Competitive Enterprise Institute, although I couldn't find it online. But Fareed said that 56% of Trump supporters believe that violence is justified in order to seize or maintain or hold political power, which is a purely fascist position and is just mind-boggling. By the way, that $400 to $600 million that Trump raised after he lost the election, in addition to the, you know, he raised $1.2 billion, I think it was, during the 4 years of his presidency for his run for re-election. Well, Jared Kushner and Donald Trump created a little private corporation and funneled between $400 and $600 million out of that into this corporation. Nobody knows where that money went. It's just amazing. So that's going on. And you know, we'll continue the conversation about that. How do you think that's going to play out? What do you think? Is this going to help the Republican Party or hurt the Republican Party?